More power to you. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you for
you tonight. That is the story on this Friday night. Have a wonderful weekend. We will see you back here on Monday night at 7. Tucker's up next.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. It's probably hard to imagine being more cynical about the news media than you already are. You watch the coverage, you know how totally dishonest it is. You read their tweets, you know how vindictive and unimpressive they are. If one of your kids went to work at CNN, would you even tell your neighbors? You might be tempted to say he was in prison. It's less embarrassing. So it's going to be hard to shock you with more stories about corruption in the news business. But prepare yourself. We've got a new one. Today, an independent journalist called Yashar Ali wrote an account of an experience he just had with NBC News managing director Daphna Linzer. Linzer is a former Washington Post reporter. She now oversees all political coverage for both NBC News and MSNBC. Ali did not expect to be talking to her. He just got on the phone with the Democratic National Committee. He had a scoop about the dates of the first primary debates. Not a big deal, but he wanted to make sure that his facts were right. The DNC confirmed his story, but then asked Ali to delay publishing it. They wanted time to notify their state parties about it first. Ali refused. He doesn't work for the DNC. He just wanted to break his story. That was it. And then he got an unexpected call from Daphna Linzer, again, who works at NBC News. Here's Ali's account of what happened next. Quote, "She asked if I could hold the story, and I said I couldn't. She was agitated. Why not? I said I'm not going to lose a scoop. And then she got angrier and said, why not? It's not a big deal. Let them make a few phone calls." My jaw dropped. I realized that Daphna Linzer, the head of all political coverage for NBC News and MSNBC, was not calling to advocate for her network. She was calling to advocate the DNC's position. She wanted me to wait so they could call state party leaders. The head of the political division was trying to bully me at the behest of the DNC over a dumb scoop. Unquote. Pretty shocking. Now, before you dismiss it as hearsay, keep in mind that Yashar Ali is not a conservative, hardly. He once worked for Gavin Newsom. He was a fundraiser for Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. He's not a right-winger. He's the opposite. He has no reason to lie about this. The head political executive at NBC News was doing errands for the DNC. She's a hack. This kind of behavior is par at NBC News. During the last campaign, the chairman of NBC, Andy Lack, leaked the Access Hollywood tape to the Washington Post. Why? Because he wanted to make sure Hillary Clinton won the presidency. Then he lied about it and crushed the career of Billy Bush because he was in the way. A year later, NBC tried to protect Hillary Clinton's close friend, Harvey Weinstein. They tried to kill a story about his sexual assaults, and then they lied about that, too. They got caught. Last fall, when the creepy porn lawyer was making wild gang rape allegations against Brett Kavanaugh during his confirmation hearings, NBC News knowingly sat on evidence that would have cleared Kavanaugh's name, but they didn't release it. If Chuck Schumer demanded the United States invade Belgium tomorrow, NBC News would dutifully produce a report about WMD stockpiles in Brussels. The Walloons are the real threat. Whatever it takes. Hours after Robert Mueller deflated the Russia hoax, Nancy Pelosi commanded the press corps to start covering health care. She said that out loud at a press conference. So CNN immediately scrapped its entire lineup. The next day, every show on CNN from 6 in the morning to midnight, every single one without any exception, repeated Democratic talking points about Obamacare. These are not journalists. These are faithful servants of the Democratic Party. It might be easier if they just admitted it. We all know it. Chris Plante hosts a radio program, The Chris Plante Show, one of the best things ever on radio, and he joins us tonight. We're happy he's here. How exactly would this the mechanics is a little bit confusing to me. How would the director of political coverage at NBC News know that Yashar Ali was working on this story?
Well, she got a call from the DNC, and someone at the DNC, when Yashar Ali called in and said, I've got this scoop and I'm going to rain on your fund for a couple of minutes, they said, well, who do we call to kill this story? And I'm sure they have a long list of people, a phone book of people in the news media, but they chose to call for this purpose Daphna Linzer, who, as you said, is the director of all political coverage for NBC and for MSNBC. And what did she do? Did she say, well, I can't do that. That would be unethical. She dutifully called, at the request of the DNC, a freelance reporter. This is a woman who has great power in the news media. If you're a freelance reporter, NBC and MSNBC are possible sources of revenue for you and for your wife and your children and for their college fund. And Yashar Ali, very much to his credit, took umbrage with her acquiescence to the DNC's call, and he sounded the alarm. Now, he's going to be hurt for this professionally because Daphne Linzer does not appreciate, and NBC News does not appreciate, that Yashar Ali went public with this because, theoretically at least, it's embarrassing to them. But the DNC knew. Who do we call? We want to spike this story. How do we put this on ice? Let's call Daphne. She can dangle a little bit of a threat over his head. He's a freelance guy. He can't alienate network people. She's a bigwig. She'll call and put him on ice. She called. Can you imagine doing such a thing?
Well, no, but that's actually the question I was about to ask you. So you're an out-of-the-closet conservative. You do multiple hours every day on your own views. You don't hide your views from anyone.
Right.
And I'm sure you vote Republican most of the time.
I do.
If the RNC called you tomorrow morning and said another reporter has a story that's inconvenient to us, will you help kill it? What would you say?
I would laugh in their faces. And it's funny, we were having a discussion about this morning. I do conservative political talk radio. And we were talking this morning in our morning meeting with Bill Hess and Victoria and Michael about how much higher my standards are as a journalist. I'm not even technically a journalist anymore, but my standards are so much higher. My ethics are so much higher than Daphne Linzer's, and then Joe Scarborough's, and then, shall I continue, Chuck Todd, and the list goes on, and Jim Sciutto, and so many others, that really journalism is dead. And it's, I was thinking about when I was driving over here, Tucker, and you know, I was a journalist for a long time. I worked for CNN for a long time.
We worked there together
for a period of time. I didn't leave journalism. Journalism left me, to paraphrase the great Ronald Reagan. Journalism is just on the ropes, and they're beyond that. They're dead. This thing is so bought and paid for at this point. Every day is a prize fight, and the referee is paid off. He's bought and paid for.
But at a certain point, if a channel gives itself over to the specific instructions of a political party, which I think CNN and NBC News both have.
Yes.
And MSNBC right now is running an infomercial right now as we speak for the Green New Deal. Okay.
Right.
Shouldn't they have to declare that as an in-kind contribution?
Well, I've been talking about that on my radio show also. President Trump brought this up in a tweet about 3 weekends ago, and the news media became apoplectic when he said maybe we should take a look at the FCC licenses of the networks. And my first thought was, well, that's not a great idea. And I thought about it for a day or so, and I said, you know, I've got to tell you, these are political organizations. They're not journalistic organizations, or at least the balance has shifted from being legitimate journalistic organizations that serve a very important function in our republic. You know, these are the guys that are supposed to be calling balls and strikes. And every day it's crooked. Every day. It's not the thumb on the scale; their elbow is on the scale.
No, it's totally corrupt. They're not even hiding.
And corrupt as there is. No, you know, Bernie Goldberg years ago, former CBS News correspondent, wrote a book called Bias. The book and the idea of bias in the media is a quaint notion of a bygone era. The word is corruption.
Right. No, that's exactly. And last thing, NBC leaked its own internal video, the Access Hollywood tape, to the Washington Post. Okay. Yeah. 2 old friends from Harvard, 2 separate news organizations leaked it. They've never faced any penalty for that. They've never had to explain how that happened. No one even mentions it anymore. Why?
They win awards for this. There's no punishment. There's punishment if you leak something that hurt the Democratic Party. There's going to be punishment for Yashar Ali.
No, you're right.
Because he told the truth. One of my favorite phrases of my own is that nothing gets you in trouble in Washington like the truth.
It's true. And for the record, I don't even like Yashar Ali. I never have.
Yeah,
we don't share the same politics. I'm not a fan.
Right. No.
But he's being honest, and he will be punished for it. You're absolutely right.
I'll take the truth wherever it's coming from.
Hey, I will, too. I totally agree with that. Chris Plant, an honest man.
Thanks, Doug.
From Russia to Covington to basic human biology, the left, for some reason, keeps falling for superstitions and conspiracy theories. Why is that? We'll investigate after the break. A huge number of well-known people disgraced themselves during the 2 years of the Russian collusion hoax, but 2 of them stand above the rest. Former CIA Chief John Brennan and former FBI Director Jim Comey. We expect lawmakers to grandstand on flimsy pretexts. That's what they do for a living. We don't expect much of anything from the news media. They're toadies and buffoons. But our most powerful bureaucrats are supposed to be, they need to be impressive. They have a lot of control over this country and the people who live here. We need them to be fair and smart and level-headed. John Brennan has shown himself to be none of those things. During his years serving Barack Obama, Brennan was known mostly for lying. Under Trump, he's become a full-blown, wild-eyed conspiracy nut.
He is feeding and fueling hatred and animosity and misunderstandings among Americans. I use the term that this is nothing short of treasonous because it is a betrayal of the nation. He is giving aid and comfort to the enemy. Treasonous is defined as a betrayal of trust as well as aiding and abetting the enemy. And so that was the word that came to my mind.
Jim Comey, meanwhile, is smarter than John Brennan, not that that's hard, but he's a political partisan, something that no FBI director should ever be. At times, his judgment has been bizarre. Watch him, for example, suggest that the most lurid portions of the obviously fake Steele dossier might in fact be real.
Honestly, never thought these words would come out of my mouth, but I don't know whether the current president of the United States was with prostitutes peeing on each other in Moscow in 2013. It's possible, but I don't know.
These people are a joke. Those are the two most powerful unelected bureaucrats in Barack Obama's government, and you would not hire them to run a CVS. They're idiots. They're self-aggrandizing narcissists who believed an absurd story about a pee tape that ran on some cat blog. And they're not alone. Congressman Adam Schiff is still rambling on like a mental patient about Russian conspiracy.
From the public, you might think it's okay that their only disappointment after that meeting was that the dirt they received on Hillary Clinton wasn't better. You might think that's okay. I think it's immoral. I think it's unethical. I think it's unpatriotic. And yes, I think it's corrupt and evidence of collusion.
Immoral, unethical, unpatriotic. People didn't used to talk like that, particularly those who are already all three. But it's not just Adam Schiff. The rest of his party is already joining the new conspiracy theory, and it's this. Bill Barr, the Attorney General, may look like a decent guy, in fact, a living stereotype of the traditional moderate Republican, but looks deceive. In fact, Barr is an enemy operative, a Putin stooge working secretly for Mother Russia. He cannot be trusted.
For Mr. Barr to quickly issue a 4-page report in his attempt to try and exonerate President Trump has too much of the odor of political expediency to help the man who appointed him, President Trump.
So if Chuck Schumer says it, you can be sure the entire herd of brainless Democratic presidential candidates say it too.
I'm deeply troubled by Barr himself. One of the reasons I voted against him. I mean, he should have recused himself, in my opinion. So I have a lot of problems with Barr.
Do you trust Barr's judgment on obstruction here?
No. I think what the Attorney General did is undermine the purpose of the special counsel's job. And I think Speaker Pelosi is quite right when she says it was not only arrogant, but very disrespectful.
You know, it's really hard to overstate how dumb this is. We're searching for the words. We know a lot about Bill Barr. He's been in the public eye for 40 years. He was the Attorney General under George H.W. Bush. He gave money to Jeb Bush's 2016 campaign. In fact, it's hard to imagine that Barr even voted for Donald Trump. Not his kind of guy. And yet now, for some reason, Bill Barr has developed such a deep loyalty to Donald Trump that he's willing to destroy his own reputation, subvert American government, and commit crimes. Why? In order to help Donald Trump, his new love, hide his criminal Russian collusion. That's what they're telling you. It's ridiculous. It's insane. But they tell you a lot of things like that. With remarkable frequency, the people who are supposed to be the most impressive in our society fall for hoaxes that no normal person would ever believe. In Iraq, the fraudulent FDA food pyramid that helped make America fatter and less healthy. Eat more breakfast cereal. That'll slim you down. They bought all of this and much more without even pausing. When creepy porn lawyer told them that Brett Kavanaugh was a sex criminal, they believed him. Then they told us that creepy porn lawyer would make a good president. These are the people who brag about how much they revere science. We're the party of science. and at the same time insist that you can change your biological sex by wishing it so. 40 years ago, these same people warned us a new ice age was coming. Now they shriek about global warming. They will literally believe anything. On the left, the Enlightenment is over. Superstition reigns in its place. This is what happens when conventional religion, the ones we all mock, die. People who say, oh, I'm secular, just find something even more implausible to believe in and impose on the rest of us, but with way less self-awareness, and therefore far more dangerously. Brian Dean Wright is a Democrat, a former CIA officer, and he joins us tonight. I can't get past this, Brian. Not that and I know we put clips up of politicians nodding in their bovine way, agreeing with whatever ludicrous conspiracy is out there. But that's what they do. They're not geniuses. They'll say whatever it takes. But the head of the CIA and the head of the FBI ought to be sober, restrained, wise people. And now we know they're not. How did this happen?
Well, you would think that they would have been, but they violated not only their oath to the country, but their oath to fellow officers such as myself. I mean, we are taught very explicitly that you don't violate that line between America's politics and the intelligence community. Brennan and Clapper and Comey, all three of them have done it. But if you step back, I think there are a couple of things happening why Democrats are falling for these kinds of hoaxes. The Brennans and the Clappers, that stuff, that's coup d'etat stuff. If you look at liberal journalists, like why do progressive journalists do this? It's about money, right? It's more of stories about bad orange man mean bigger, clicks and views, and that means bigger money and book deals and so forth, right? And then Democratic politicians, why are they doing it? Well, more of that stuff means more fear. That means panic, hysteria. That brings in donations, and that brings in votes. So that's the short answer to your question. But actually, Tucker, I think there's something bigger happening here that actually is more frightening to me. And that is, as a party, we are telling you through these hoaxes that you were a victim, right? Whether it be the Smollett case, the Covington kids, right? If you are a victim, then you belong to us. And even if you haven't been a victim, you will be at some point. So that, I think, is the underlying issue. Since we have embraced identity politics, we have to get people to the polls based on fear, on panic. And that's the stuff that, look, Trump will be gone in 2 or 6 years, right?
Right.
The Democratic Party, what it is creating, its coalition, how it gets people to the polls. If we're telling people that they have to be victims, then we have to believe these stories about Smollett or the Covington kids. That's the issue that's not going to go away, that's going to be part of the Democratic Party, and I hate to say this, but a part of the nation for a generation to come. Because we're telling people, don't think critically, don't think for yourself, just say what you should say when a person of color or a gay person or a woman says that they've been a victim. Just automatically believe them. Stop thinking. That's what the Democratic Party is becoming, and it is horrific.
So what will happen? I mean, we're not at war right now and there's no financial crisis, but we will be, and there will be, because that's just the nature of running the world's most powerful country. And so when there is a lot of outward pressure applied on this country and society is really tested, its cohesion is really tested, I mean, what's it going to look like when people immediately retreat into their tribes and rely on conspiracy theories to explain things?
Yeah, you need a national identity to get through those moments.
Yes, exactly.
But I have to tell you, we already are at war. I mean, those of us in the intelligence community know we are in a covert war against the Chinese government. Unquestionably, it's been happening for about 10 years. It's only going to become, a greater and greater, more obvious problem to those who don't know. But I'm telling you, I work with folks in the military, the intelligence community. We all know it's happening. So we have to get ready now for this. It's already happening. So what will occur in the next 5 or 10 years when it becomes more overt? And we have spent the past 2 and how many knows, more years focused on, well, what did the Mueller report really say? And then it was redacted, but so now we need it unredacted. But now, I mean, it's never ending. I mean, we might as well be looking for Hitler and Jimmy Hoffa opening up a bed and breakfast in Argentina. I mean, so that's what we're doing right now. That's what and we're not preparing for the things that matter. And as a Democratic Party, why don't we just put behind the Mueller thing? It's done. It's solved. Now let's have the reasonable conversation of, is Trump the best that we can do for this country now and moving forward? That's a great debate. Right. Let's have that.
It is,
but
and
it's a conspiracy crap.
It's a winnable debate. He's a Russian agent, not winnable,
yes.
I would say. Brian, thanks very much for that. Very wise. Your point about China is something we should meditate on. Well, the Jussie Smollett saga is getting weirder by the day. The president has gotten involved. Well, Smollett's lawyers say that his attackers, and this is very stealthy, you'll be impressed by this, wore whiteface during the attack. Just another set of muggers in whiteface. We'll have these surreal details ahead. Well, in this season's weirdest news story, the Jussie Smollett hoax, Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel is demanding that Smollett repay the city of Chicago for all the police time and the investigators' time. He's also saying, we're not going to bother explaining because it's impossible to explain, that Trump is responsible for Smollett's stunt. Smollett hates Trump. Blame Trump voters. Whatever. Meanwhile, Kim Foxx, she's the prosecutor who let this all happen, who prevented Smollett from being prosecuted, now admits she never actually recused herself from the case. Matt Finn has been following this from day one. He joins us tonight from Chicago. Matt?
Tucker, right now the city of Chicago is demanding $130,000 from Jussie Smollett. The city says that's how much it costs in overtime hours during its meticulous investigation into Smollett's alleged attack. An attorney for the city of Chicago wrote to Jussie Smollett in a letter demanding that if Smollett doesn't pay the $130,000 within 7 days, the city is threatening to bring new charges against the actor for filing a false report. Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel, who's feuded with the president for years, alleges the only reason Jussie Smollett could take advantage of a hate crime is because of the toxic environment Emanuel claims the president created. Meanwhile, the mayor and the president do agree that Jussie Smollett is a liar, and Emanuel says Smollett all of a sudden stopped demanding justice since his charges were dropped.
Has he said a single word about any hate crime against a gay man, a black gay man? No, nothing.
Kim Foxx, who suddenly recused herself during the height of this investigation for texting with Michelle Obama's former aide about Smollett's case, now admits she used the word recuse in a, quote, colloquial sense, not legally. And Jussie Smollett is nominated for a Best Supporting Actor award at tomorrow's NAACP award show in Los Angeles. Fox News confirms Smollett flew to L.A. late Wednesday. Not clear if he'll appear at the show. Project 21, a black conservative group which says it has 60,000 members, demanding Smollett's nomination be rescinded. Meanwhile, the host of the awards show says he hopes Jussie Smollett wins. Tucker.
So many threads, Matt. I don't know where to begin. Thank you for that.
On the night of the attack that his attackers were white. He said they had masks on and gloves, but he saw their eyes and he saw the skin surrounding their eyes. Was that a false statement?
Obviously, you can disguise that. You could put makeup on. It took me all of 5 minutes to Google. You know, I was looking up the brothers, and one of the first videos that showed up actually was one of the brothers in whiteface doing a Joker monologue with white makeup on. And so it's not implausible.
Woo. Robbie Suave is associate editor at Reason, author of a fantastic book, Panic Attack, Young Radicals in the Age of Trump, and he joins us. Robbie, great to see you. So from what I can tell, Jussie Smollett and his attorney are, in a straight-faced way, taking the position that this all really happened, but he never lied.
That's what they have to do, right, to just kind of power through this so he can keep his career. He has to thunderously deny that he was involved in this, even though we pretty clearly know that he was. They have to come up with these crazy sort of explanations. I mean, if your theory requires you, right, to be wearing a disguise under your disguise, as to be in whiteface under ski masks, I mean, that's like absurd, clearly do that. So ultimately, at this point, the people I'm most upset with are the state's attorney.
The problem, though, with Smollett continuing to lie is that it allows people to believe.
Emanuel was getting at when he tried to spin this on Trump is saying, well, you know, Trump has made this country so unsafe, so of course we believe this, it's ultimately Trump's fault, when of course it's the opposite of that. We have been misled about hate crimes being off the charts in the country, so we were prepared to believe this, or the people in the media were prepared to believe it.
Right. So in other words, if people don't like your politics or you personally, and then they lie in order to hurt you, it's your fault?
Right. Right. I guess that's what he was saying. And I understand why he's mad, because they did this investigation, and even she says, even Kimberly Fox, the state's attorney, says, we would have won if we brought this to court. The evidence was good. And for some reason, she just decided not to actually get him to plead guilty, which would have been, you know, I would have been fine with community service.
Sure.
Fine.
Me too.
I don't think anyone really, you know, our jails already have too many people in them.
I agree with that.
We need to lock up, you know, people who are not a violent threat. But she needed to get him to plead guilty. That's like how it works. So we would have had the catharsis of having it proven for all these people who say, I don't know what happened. We know what happened. We do know what happened. But we needed that verdict there, or that acknowledgement on his part, and she just decided not to go for that.
I could not agree with you more. That was the critical thing, just to know the truth and just have it acknowledged. We don't need to hurt Jussie Smollett. He's obviously a very wounded person already, but this is infuriating and bad. Robbie, thank you. Great to see you. The left has been calling its enemies racist for years. They call this show that all the time, racist. Now, as the 2020 race ramps up, they're calling each other racist. Of course they are. The revolution always eats itself. We're going to enjoy it after the break. Plus, time for Final Exam. We have a showdown between two of our own anchors tonight, Martha McCallum and Bill Hemmer, two of the most well-versed news people I've ever met. Who will win? We'll be right back. Well, for years, the left's go-to insult for anyone they want to stop talking or crush politically has been, racist, you're racist, be quiet. Now party leaders are jockeying for 2020, and Democrats are turning on each other. What epithet are they using? Racist. It's amazing. Stacey Abrams says racism is to blame for Beto O'Rourke getting more attention than she gets. Watch.
Stacey Abrams as, the darling of the media. I don't think that success is zero-sum, so I don't want to disparage or take away from the reaction and the legitimate response people had to his campaign. But I do want to call the question. I think race plays a part. I think region plays a part. I also think phenotype plays a part.
When asked, Cory Booker agreed with Abrams. Meanwhile, over at CNN, Joan Walsh just argued that Joe Biden should not run for president, not because of his political views or anything he's done, but because of the color of his skin. The left is even segregating the press now. In Savannah, Georgia this week, a public event concerning an upcoming mayor's race was closed to everybody who wasn't black. Savannah Alderman Van Johnson defended his attendance at the meeting by saying, hey, not my business.
Do you think the message there on the door is progressive?
It's not my meeting. Again, I was asked to come and give a statement, and so I came and I gave a statement.
It's totally cool. I go to a segregated event, but not a big deal. Chris Hahn is a radio host and a former staffer for Senator Chuck Schumer. He joins us today. Thanks a lot for coming on, Chris. What's the Democratic Party's position on segregation now? I noticed that Harvard, the epicenter of American liberalism, has segregated graduation ceremonies every year, as you know. And now there's a Democratic Party event in Georgia that is segregated by race. It said so on the door. Is this something the Democrats are for?
Not to my knowledge, and I think that any event that is political should be open to all press at all times. I believe in full transparency of everything.
Well, it's not really about transparency. It's about segregation. So why hasn't the DNC said anything about this, or why haven't the many What about the presidential candidates? Where are they in this?
If they're asked about it, they should respond the same way I did and say that it was an abomination and shouldn't be happening.
A segregated Democratic Party event. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's just a little bit. You think that'd be like maybe front page?
A local city council event is not necessarily the entire country. If you want to start trading event for event, let's start looking at events that are happening in the Deep South that are probably whites only, even if not told that way by intimidation. So let's be careful.
It's pretty funny.
It's insane. No, it absolutely happens every single day.
There are a lot of Republicans' events that say whites only on them. Are you joking? The DOJ Civil Rights Division would be there with the FBI. That would lead every paper in this country and every newscast for the next year. That has not happened. The segregated South was run by Democrats, and here's a segregated event, a Democratic event. Let's start looking. Please. So Beto O'Rourke was asked about reparations recently, and I want to play you his response to it. Here's what he said.
There was a Washington Times article saying that you oppose reparations, traditional reparations for black people. So why should I, as a black man, vote for you when you oppose reparations?
So what's the right answer there?
The right answer is because he's for equality. He's for lifting people up. I mean, reparations is not going to be. Look, anybody who says they're for reparations, they're going to be able to pass reparations at this point. But that doesn't mean we can't have real affirmative action that lift people up from lower income status and bring them into the mainstream of society.
Okay, I think that's a fair answer. So, but why not start with the Democratic Party? So, the Democratic Party, 100% of its presidents have been men. 93% have been white. One exception.
Yeah.
Democratic Party is the progressive party, the racially aware party, the woke party. So why not award 100 superdelegates, I'm serious, to every candidate of color and every female candidate in this race? Why not apply those affirmative action standards you're talking about to your own presidential race?
I think that the Democratic Party celebrates diversity. I think that we have a great field of candidates running in the Democratic primary of all races, genders, and even sexual orientation. And I think it's going to be an interesting primary. And I don't think the Democrats run away from the diversity that's bringing this country.
Really, it doesn't.
So
I look at the polls
and I see over this because they are. But Republicans are tailoring to the fear of people who are worried that this country's changing. When really what they've got to do is
I know the talking points are, but I'm just saying, hold on, if you've got the woke party and your leading presidential candidates are white, Beto and the former vice president, Joe Biden, then why wouldn't you apply the affirmative action standards you apply in the rest of the country to your own primary? Why wouldn't you give I'm dead serious. Why wouldn't you do what they do at Harvard in your own primary if it's so good for the country?
Here's the thing. Here's what I would say to that, Tucker. I think it's important that both parties make sure that there's diversity in their delegates to the campaign.
I think it's a great idea. And
both
by the way,
parties.
nobody ever wants to live by their own standards.
I would love to see the Republican Party have like 5% of their delegates be people of color. So let's be very clear. One party's going to have a very diverse convention, and one party's going to be very, very white. And it's not going to be the DNC.
There's a lot of white people in the Democratic Party running it. Anyway, whatever.
We'll see it.
Chris Hahn, thank you. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Time now for Final Exam, where two of the smartest people in the news business face off against one another to see who's been paying the closest attention to what's going on this week. Tonight, a special New York anchor showdown. Martha McCallum, of course, hosts the story every night right before this show. Bill Hemmer hosts America's Newsroom every morning. Until 2 years ago, they hosted that show together. They are friends. Tonight, they're competitors. I cannot believe you've agreed to face off against each other.
Yeah, well, we talked about it.
Just like old times.
Yeah.
We faced off every day, but now it's just tonight with you.
A little more bloodthirsty tonight. Good luck to you both. Normally, I bet big money on the outcome of this, but tonight I have no idea who's going to win.
Bet on Martha.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see.
So you know the rules, but I'm going to repeat them for our audience at home. Hands on buzzers. I ask the questions. First one to buzz in gets to answer the question. You must wait until I finish asking it before you answer. I'll say your name, and then you can go ahead. Every correct answer is worth a single point. Incorrect answers detract a point from your total best of 5 wins.
Oh, boy.
Make sense?
A lot of rules.
I think so.
A lot of rules. All right.
Just keep it on Mueller and we'll be fine.
Keep it on Mueller. It may get a little lower than that. We'll see. Question 1. Everybody has things that annoy them. Even the Pope. According to a new video, Pope Francis says he doesn't really like it when people do what? What bothers the Pope?
I mean...
Sin.
Martha McCallum.
I mean,
sin.
That's what I'd say.
Sin. You are such a good person.
Really
of course, that's
him.
what
It's annoying.
that's such a revealing and sweet answer.
I don't know the answer.
Is it the correct answer? Sin.
No. It's wrong, and it's going to
Many people lined up to kiss his ring, and after about 10 minutes of ring kissing, the Pope had had enough.
So our judges have said that theologically that's correct, of course. But for the purposes of this show, it is technically incorrect.
I don't think that answering sin should count against me, though.
I agree with you, but I don't make the rules here. I'm merely a marionette controlled by New York, like all of us. All right, question 2. A British Airways flight upset a lot of passengers on it this week when it landed at the wrong destination. Very wrong. It was supposed to fly from London to Dusseldorf, Germany, but turned up hundreds of miles away in which country?
Scotland?
Scotland? That's very wrong. Is that the right answer, though? Scotland.
A British Airways flight headed to Germany mistakenly touches down 1,000 miles away in Scotland. The plane landed in Dusseldorf nearly 2 hours later. The airline says a German company that chartered the plane submitted the wrong route to air traffic control. What a surprise.
Ooh, I think you both knew that, but Martha, you are lightning fast.
Good, yeah. You know what?
It felt like he hit the buzzer before I did, but
I just heard Hemmer press and hold. So that's going to be my strategy now.
They're giving you tips.
Yes.
All right, so now we're back at par, 0-0. Question 3. Dunkin' Donuts, which does not make health food, is teaming up with which sporting event to produce a pair of sneakers?
Wow. You want to guess or do you want me to?
You guess.
Sneakers may be the key word. It has something to do... Bill Hemmer.
Sport?
Sport. Which...
Basketball.
Which sporting event? Which sporting event is teamed up with Dunkin' Donuts to make a new pair of
well at all.
Running shoes? How's that?
The track and field, the Olympics.
The Olympics. We're going to play the tape.
Please.
Dunkin' Donuts has teamed up with the shoe company Saucony to create probably the best shoes ever for the Boston Marathon. You know, America runs on Dunkin'. Get it. Look at these Dunkin' Donuts shoes right here. They got the colors. They got the coffee cup on the tongue. Boston is on the little... How about that? How about that? How about that right there?
Ooh, Boston Marathon.
Boston
So what we have here
I was going to say that.
is
exactly right out of Boston.
the most informed two contestants and yet the lowest score in the history of the show.
It's all right.
No. It just shows how serious you are.
We thought maybe it would be slightly more newsy.
Like real news?
It's okay.
Yeah. No, not on this show. Question 4. This one's multiple choice. You have to wait till the end to answer. Jimmy Carter has now lived longer than any American president. How old is he? Is he A, 94, B, 96, or C, 101? Martha.
I think he's 94.
94. Is Jimmy Carter 94 years old?
Jimmy Carter has just passed a major milestone. He now has lived longer than any other former president. It's not a birth date. It's a notable milestone. Today, he is 94 years old and 172 days. The previous record holder was the late President George H.W. Bush, who lived 1 day younger than Carter.
You were absolutely right. Martha McCallum, ladies and gentlemen. 94 was the correct answer. That puts you up 1 to Bill's down 1. Going into the final question, which is worth 2 points.
Oh, okay.
This is another multiple choice. We can get back to 0. And here's the question. A painting worth $28 million was found this week, 20 years after it was stolen off a yacht owned by a Saudi sheikh. Who painted the painting? Was it A, Pablo Picasso, B, Vincent van Gogh, or C, Salvador Dali?
I think it was Van Gogh.
You think it was Van Gogh. For 2 points, was it Vincent One-Ear Van Gogh?
A painting by Pablo Picasso worth over $28 million has been tracked down by renowned art sleuth Arthur Brand after a years-long search. The Dora Maar had previously hung in Picasso's home until his death in 1973.
You know, this has really been the most remarkable segment we've ever done. So
you can run this online.
You know what? This is perfect. As longtime partners and friends, I'm not surprised that you wanted to end on the same number. But the rules require we have one tiebreaker question.
Cool. All right.
And this is a very esoteric question. We've asked it before.
Okay.
What is the capital of the African nation of Burkina Faso?
Oh, I know this. You should know this. You always know this kind of thing. What is the capital? I know.
It is Ouagadougou. And I'm telling you that because I don't want to wreck the perfect symmetry of this show. You came in friends and you leave friends. Nobody wins, and yet everybody wins.
Everybody's the winner.
Next time, let's just do the Mueller report. We'll be fine.
You guys are the best. Thank you.
Thanks,
Great to see you tonight.
You too.
Thank you. That's it for this week's final exam. How did you do? How are you going to do next week? Pay attention to the news every day. Tune in Thursdays to see if you can beat our experts. We'll be right back.